My name is Kirsten Westergaard. I'm from Denmark, and I first came to Bangladesh, or should we say to East Pakistan, in February of 1971. And I was supposed to do a research project of the Kumila cooperatives down in Kumila, which were working very closely with what is now BARD, Bangladesh Academy of Rural Development, which was at the time part, the Pakistan Academy for Rural Development. So we had trained our assistants and were ready to go into the field. But then came March 7, where we had heard that Sheikh Mujib was going to give a big speech over the radio from the race course. And we all sat in front of the radio listening. We thought we were going to listen to, but we never heard the speech because the radio was cut off. So after that, most people thought it would be a good idea if we went into Dhaka. So the director of BARD and my colleague and myself, we drove into Dhaka. And then the idea was that women and children should be evacuated. But I'm a political scientist, so I wasn't going to be evacuated at such a crucial time in the history of Bangladesh. So I said, no, Ami Jabuna, I am not going. I stayed at the Intercon, and of course, during the time, we were following what was going on. We went to various places where demonstration and speeches and all sorts of things were going on. And every afternoon, we used to come here to this very place, which is Mujib's house, where he came to the balcony where we are sitting now, and he stood there every afternoon and gave speeches. So lots of people came, and many foreigners came, all journalists came, and of course many Bangladeshis also. And so we went every day. And the last day we came here was on the 25th. But Mujib never came out onto the balcony. And things were sort of, it was a strange feeling all around. And then his press secretary came out and made an announcement that he wasn't coming out. And we could feel that something was going on, but obviously we didn't know what was going on. Around midnight or a little before, we heard shotguns, and then we went to the top of the roof at Intercon, and from there you could see Dhaka burning, especially down in Old Dhaka, where the Hindus live, and the People, which was a newspaper at the time, and over at the university. And then we went to bed, and we had no idea what was happening. And of course, the next day there was curfew, and we couldn't go out. And then we heard over the radio, some of the Bengali servants at the hotel had heard that Bangladesh had been declared independent. The journalists, they were told to leave on the 25th in the afternoon. And all of them left except two, Simon Drinks and a French photographer who unfortunately later was killed in Vietnam. They were hiding somewhere in the hotel, and I remember the cook had baked some bread, and inside the bread he had put the pictures that the photographer had taken. And then after a while, I got in contact with a person working for Justice Chowdhury in London. You know, Justice Chowdhury had been appointed the special representative for the Bangladesh government in exile. So I got in touch with that office and asked them what we could do. So they said the best thing is, of course, to influence the government. So we sat down and we wrote this letter to the Danish government and the Danish parliament, and we made sure that they received it, and we also sent the letter to the press. We actually even got a thank you note from the Prime Minister, who said that he would take up the issue at a Nordic meeting of ministers. So that was nice. So then we thought we should sort of get ourselves a little together. So then we sat down and decided that we should form a committee. So we formed a committee, and then we decided that we should continue, putting pressure on the government, and we should also give lectures, in various institutions, so people understood it. And then, at some point, we decided that we should write a pamphlet about what was happening. In the original letter to the government, we had just written a few pages about what was happening. But then we sat down and we wrote this little pamphlet about Bangladesh, which gives the situation from when Pakistan was formed. We also, had a few pictures of the genocide, if you can see it here. On the back, we wrote, Joy Bangla. Now, this pamphlet, when we had finished that, we called a press conference and said that we would give some information and we would distribute this pamphlet. And many journalists came, and again, they were very cooperative, and many of them just cited page after page. So we were very proud. And that has been, I think this was in August. And then in September, Justice Chowdhury came to Copenhagen. And so we called a new press conference, but it was actually his press conference. And of course that was, just very short after, but since he was an important person, again the press came. And I have saved some of the newspaper clippings. I just showed them to a friend the other day, lots of pictures with him in the papers. So that was altogether very successful. When representatives came from London and we went to see both the opposition and actually one of the persons who signed it was General Secretary of the Social Democratic Party. And he was very sympathetic. But when I think it was in August, we had an election. So he later became foreign minister. So, and he was also very sympathetic. But every time we went and discussed, they said, we can't really do much before you control a territory. Where is Mujibnagar? So, we always said, somewhere in Bangladesh. Of course, somewhere in Bangladesh. Of course, everybody knew that they were in India. So, yes, they were helpful, but they also did something else, after the Indian invasion of East Pakistan, about a week after or something, there was a vote in the United Nations to withdraw all troops. Most Western countries and all Nordic countries, except Denmark, we abstained, but all the other countries, of course, voted for. I think that was because of the foreign minister who had really been sympathetic from the very beginning. And also, I think we were one of the first countries to recognize Bangladesh, as far as I remember. First, when I got the telephone call from your embassy, I was completely surprised. But then I also felt very honored, which I still do. And of course, coming back and receiving all this hospitality and all this has been a great experience, I must say. And as you know, I've been back many times, but somehow the mood one had in '71, I haven't felt for years at all. um, so some of it actually came back these days because we were reliving this. So in that way, it was quite moving.